I stared at the blueprints spread across Ryan's desk, my coffee growing cold in my hand. The familiar scent of his leather office chair mixed with fresh ink from the architectural plans. But something else caught in my throat, the bitter taste of betrayal. There, sketched in precise blue lines, was our dream house transformed into a nightmare, a separate wing for his parents. Complete with a private entrance and kitchenette. My name is Maya, and I thought I knew what kind of life I was building. Funny how paper can shatter certainty. What do you think? Ryan's voice startled me. He stood in the doorway, grinning like he'd just given me a gift. Mother helped design the layout. She has excellent taste, don't you agree? I traced the lines with my finger, counting the rooms that had been sacrificed to accommodate Helen's vision. Our planned art studio, gone. The sunroom we'd dreamed about, replaced by their private living area. When were you planning to tell me about this? Tell you? Maya, I'm telling you now. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Besides, Mother thinks. Of course she does. The coffee cup clattered against the desk as I set it down. She thinks, she plans, she decides. And you just go along with it all, don't you? Ryan's smile faltered. They're getting older. We need to think about their future. Their future? My voice cracked. What about our future? The one we planned together, Ryan. Remember that conversation? Just us, building our life, our family? He moved closer, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. It's not that simple, he said. Actually, it is. You made a choice. You just didn't include me in it. Mother says. Stop. The word came out sharp enough to make him flinch. Just stop. I gathered the blueprints, rolling them carefully. 3 years of marriage, and I'd never noticed how Ryan's spine disappeared whenever Helen entered the equation. Or maybe I'd noticed, but chosen to ignore it, hoping love would be enough to break her hold on him. Maya, don't be difficult about this. His tone shifted, echoing Helen's patronizing lilt. It's the practical solution. Mother says we'll save money on elderly care in the future, and... Does she know about the fertility treatments? The question hung between us like smoke. Does she know we've been trying for a baby? His silence was answer enough. Right. I placed the rolled blueprints in his hands. Because that's none of her business. Just like this house should have been none of her business. You're overreacting. Ryan's face hardened. Mother only wants what's best for us. No, she wants what's best for her. And you're too scared to say no. I walked past him, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Each step felt like a countdown, though to what, I wasn't sure yet. Behind me, Ryan called out, "Where are you going?" To call my sisters. I paused at the door. Someone needs to hear my voice in this family, since you've clearly stopped listening. As I left his office, my phone buzzed with a text from Helen. Darling, I hope Ryan showed you the plans. I've already contacted the contractors. Isn't it exciting? I stared at the message, a cold clarity washing over me. She'd planned this perfectly, the announcement, the contractors, the timing. She'd orchestrated every detail, knowing Ryan would fold like a house of cards. Well, Helen Carter was about to learn that not everyone in this family danced to her tune. I opened my contacts and called Emma, my eldest sister. Hey, I said when she answered. Remember when you said I'd eventually have to choose between my marriage and my self-respect? Oh, Maya. Emma's voice softened with understanding. What did they do? They're about to learn exactly what happens when you push someone too far. I stepped into the elevator, watching the doors close on my old life. Want to help me plan a little revenge? The dining room gleamed with Helen's signature perfection, crystal glasses catching light, silverware aligned with military precision. I watched her arrange fresh-cut roses in the centerpiece, each stem positioned just so, while her words sliced through the air like paper cuts. Maya, darling, I noticed you've been rather quiet about the house plans. Surely you see how perfect the arrangement will be? Ryan tells me you're still trying for a baby, having experienced hands nearby will be invaluable. My fork scraped against bone china. Across the table, Emma's eyes widened at Helen's calculated strike. Even Chloe, usually quick with a retort, held her breath. Actually, Helen, I prefer to keep our fertility journey private. I smiled, matching her saccharine tone. But thank you for your concern. Ryan cleared his throat. Mother means well, Maya. Of course she does. I cut into my meat with precise movements. Just like she meant well when she rearranged our wedding seating chart without asking. Or when she redecorated our guest room while we were on vacation. Paul Carter studied his wine glass, a familiar retreat. Helen's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. Oh, you're still upset about that? I simply saw an opportunity to improve things. The room looks much better now, doesn't it, Ryan? It does look nice, Ryan mumbled. Chloe's fork clattered against her plate. Funny, I remember Maya mentioning she was planning to turn that room into a nursery. Helen's smile never wavered. Well, with the new house plans, we'll have plenty of room for everything. I've already selected the perfect shade of yellow for the nursery walls. Gender neutral, of course. My chest tightened. I felt Emma's foot press against mine under the table, a silent signal of support. Yellow? I set down my knife. That's interesting, considering Ryan and I hadn't discussed nursery colors yet. With anyone. Mother has excellent taste, Ryan interjected. She's only trying to help. Help? The word tasted bitter. Like moving into our home without discussing it with me first? That kind of help? Silence dropped like a curtain. Helen dabbed her lips with her napkin, every movement calculated. Ryan, darling, you did tell Maya about our discussion, didn't you? Discussion? I turned to my husband. What discussion? Ryan's face flushed. I was going to mention it. Mother suggested we could help with the mortgage payments if they move in immediately, Helen finished, triumph glinting in her eyes. The contractors can start next week. We'll need to pack quickly, of course, but I'm sure you understand the urgency. The room spun. Next week. They'd planned it all, the renovations, the move, my future, without a single word to me. Maya? Emma's voice carried a warning. My hands were shaking. I stood, my chair scraping against hardwood. Excuse me. I need some air. Don't be dramatic, dear. Helen's voice followed me. This is what family does. We take care of each other. I turned back, meeting her gaze. Is that what this is, Helen? Taking care of family? Or making sure you never lose control of your son? Maya! Ryan stood, his face darkening. Apologize to Mother. Chloe jumped up. Apologize? Are you kidding me? Stay out of this, Ryan snapped. Or what? Chloe challenged. You'll let your mother handle it? I walked out, leaving chaos erupting behind me. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter, breathing deeply. Footsteps approached, Emma's measured tread. You okay? No. I laughed, the sound hollow. But I'm done pretending to be. What are you going to do? Through the kitchen window, I watched Helen's car in our driveway, already taking up space, already claiming territory. Remember that lawyer you mentioned? The one who handled your friend's divorce? Emma's intake of breath was sharp. Maya. I need her number. I turned to face my sister. And I need you to help me move some things out of the house. Tonight. You're sure? From the dining room, I heard Helen's voice rising. Ryan, darling, you need to control your wife's outbursts. This behavior simply won't do when we're living together. I've never been more sure of anything. I pulled out my phone. It's time to show Helen Carter what happens when you push someone too far. Emma nodded, understanding, darkening her features. I'll call Chloe. We'll handle this together. Behind us, the perfect family dinner continued to unravel, each thread pulling loose with satisfying finality. The contractors' trucks lined our driveway like vultures, their presence mocking every promise Ryan had ever made. I sat in my car, watching them unload equipment while Helen directed traffic like a symphony conductor. 3 days after the dinner disaster, and they were already tearing into our home. My phone buzzed, another message from Ryan, please come home. We need to talk about this rationally. Rational. Like it was rational to ambush your wife with renovation plans. Like it was rational to let your mother orchestrate your entire life. I stepped out of the car just as Helen's voice carried across the lawn. The wall between the kitchen and dining room needs to come down first. Ryan agrees, it'll open up the space beautifully. Does he? The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Helen turned, her surprise quickly masked by that practiced smile. Maya, darling. How wonderful. You can help us decide on the new fixtures. The fixtures for the house you're hijacking? I moved closer, noting how the contractors suddenly found their blueprints fascinating. Or should I say, the house you've already hijacked? Now, Maya, Helen started, but Ryan's voice cut through. There you are. He emerged from the garage, tension visible in his shoulders. Where have you been? I've been calling all morning. Consulting a lawyer. The words dropped like stones into still water. Helen's smile flickered. Ryan's face drained of color. Don't be ridiculous, Helen recovered first. Ryan, tell her she's being ridiculous. But Ryan just stared at me, something like fear creeping into his eyes. Maya, whatever you're thinking. I'm thinking I just heard you through the bedroom window last night. My voice stayed steady, even as my hands shook. You and your mother, planning my life away while I was supposedly asleep. Helen's composure cracked. You were eavesdropping? I was in my own bedroom. But please. Tell me again how I'm getting that promotion at work, the one you convinced Ryan I shouldn't take because it might interfere with having children? Ryan stepped forward. That's not what. Or maybe explain how you've already enrolled us in your country club, using our joint account? I pulled out my phone, showing the bank statement. Funny, I don't remember agreeing to that either. A gift, Helen snapped. For both of you. Ryan understands the importance of maintaining certain social connections. Ryan understands whatever you tell him to understand. That's enough. Ryan's voice cracked like a whip. Mother, please give us a minute. Helen hesitated, clearly unused to being dismissed. Darling. Please. She retreated, but not before shooting me a look that promised consequences. The contractors suddenly remembered urgent tasks elsewhere. Maya, Ryan's voice softened. You're upset, I get it. But this is what families do, they support each other, they stay together. No, Ryan. This is what your mother does. She controls, she manipulates, and you let her. She loves us. She loves controlling us. I met his gaze. When was the last time you made a decision without consulting her first? His silence answered for him. The fertility treatments, I pressed on. Did you tell her how you've been skipping appointments? How you've been sabotaging our chances because she thinks we should wait until she moves in? Ryan paled. How did you? Dr. Patterson called yesterday. She was concerned about your cancellations. My throat tightened. 3 years, Ryan. 3 years I've been trying to build a family with you, while you've been building a prison with her. It's not like that. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Mother just wants. Stop. The word came out like a bullet. Just stop saying what she wants. What do you want, Ryan? Do you even know anymore? Behind him, Helen watched from the window, her shadow falling across the lawn like a stain. Ryan's face crumpled, then hardened, a transformation I'd seen too many times before. I want you to stop fighting this, he said finally. Mother knows what's best for us. I nodded slowly, something breaking and reforming inside me. Goodbye, Ryan. Maya. The lawyer will contact you tomorrow. I turned away, my steps steady. I hope someday you realize what you lost, and who made you lose it. His voice followed me, weak and uncertain. What are you doing? What you never could, I called back. I'm choosing myself. The contractors' hammers began their symphony of destruction as I drove away, leaving behind the ruins of a life I'd thought was mine. Emma's spare bedroom felt like a confessional, scattered with remnants of my married life, photo albums, wedding gifts. The vintage jewelry box Ryan gave me on our first anniversary. Each item carried the weight of memories I couldn't quite bring myself to discard. My phone lit up with another message from Paul Carter. Maya, please call me. There are things you need to know. I stared at the text, remembering all the times Paul had stayed silent. All the family dinners where he'd retreated behind his newspaper while Helen orchestrated her schemes. Why speak up now? The doorbell rang. Through the window, I spotted Ryan's car idling in the driveway. Don't answer it, Chloe called from the hallway. He's tried this at my place twice already. But something in me needed to face him. I opened the door to find Ryan clutching a familiar leather-bound book, our wedding album. You left this, he said softly. I left a lot of things. He shifted, uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen before. Father wants to talk to you. I saw his message. It's about Mother. Ryan's voice cracked slightly. About what she did to his first wife. The world tilted sideways. His what? Please, Maya. Just talk to him. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Paul Carter in a coffee shop downtown, watching him methodically shred a paper napkin. Helen wasn't my first wife, he began, eyes fixed on the growing pile of paper strips. Caroline and I were married for 3 years before I met Helen. She was different. Independent, like you. My coffee grew cold as Paul's story unfolded. How Helen had started as his secretary, how she'd slowly infiltrated their lives, offering to help when Caroline got sick. How she'd taken over their finances, their medical decisions, their future plans. By the time I realized what was happening, Caroline had signed everything over to Helen's care. The house, the accounts. Even her life insurance. Paul's hands trembled. She died thinking she was protecting me, ensuring I'd be taken care of. And you married Helen. 6 months later. His shame filled the space between us. I told myself it was grief, that I needed someone to help me through it. But Helen. She'd planned it all, every detail. Why are you telling me this now? Paul finally met my gaze. Because yesterday, I found these in Helen's study. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts of my medical records, fertility clinic appointments, bank statements. And something else, documentation for a trust fund in Ryan's name, accessible only if he remained married and living with his parents. She's been tracking everything, Paul whispered. Just like with Caroline. My hands shook as I read the documents. Does Ryan know about this? He knows about the trust. Not about Caroline. Paul leaned forward. Helen's already talking about your fragile mental state, about how you might need her to manage your affairs during this difficult time. Ice spread through my veins as I remembered Helen's recent suggestions about joint accounts, about combining our insurance policies. I should have warned you sooner, Paul continued. But Helen. She has ways of making people disappear. Legally, financially, socially. Caroline learned that too late. My phone buzzed, Helen's number. The text read, "Darling, I'm worried about you. Let me help manage things until you're thinking clearly again. Ryan agrees it's for the best." Another buzz, my bank notifying me of a large withdrawal attempt, pending approval. "She's already starting," Paul said quietly. I gathered the documents with steady hands, a strange calm settling over me. "Thank you, Paul, for finally speaking up. What will you do?" I stood, remembering the lawyer's business card in my wallet, thinking of the detailed records I'd kept of every manipulation, every financial move Helen had made. I'm going to do what Caroline never got the chance to do. I met Paul's gaze. I'm going to destroy Helen Carter's perfect world. As I walked out, my phone buzzed again. "Ryan, Mother says you're not well. Let us help you." I smiled, thinking of the evidence in my hands, of Caroline's ghost finally finding voice through Paul's confession. Helen Carter had spent years building her web of control. Now it was time to watch it burn. The storage unit's metal door groaned open, revealing the carefully organized pieces of my life. 3 weeks of secret trips, smuggling out photos, documents, and irreplaceable mementos while Helen's renovation crew gutted our home. Emma stood beside me, clipboard in hand, methodically checking off items. "Bank statements?" she asked. "Safe deposit box. Medical records?" "Copied and secured." I lifted a box labeled "Kitchen, Fragile," along with Paul's evidence about Caroline. Emma's pen paused. "You really think Helen would?" "She already is." I showed her my phone, another notification from the bank, another attempted withdrawal. "She's trying to drain the accounts before I can stop her." "Mrs. Carter?" A voice echoed through the storage facility. We froze. Helen's personal assistant rounded the corner, phone raised. "I thought I recognized your car." The flash went off before I could react. "Sorry to intrude," she smiled, all professional courtesy. "Mrs. Carter Sr. was concerned about your recent behavior. Just documenting for the family's peace of mind." She retreated, heels clicking against concrete, damage already done. "Maya." Emma's voice carried warning. "What just happened?" My phone buzzed. "Helen, darling, moving things without telling anyone?" "Ryan's so worried. Perhaps we should discuss power of attorney until you're feeling more stable." Another buzz. "Ryan, Mother's right. You're not thinking clearly. Let us help." "She's building a case," I whispered, the reality hitting like ice water. "Just like with Caroline. Making me look unstable, paranoid." "Then we move faster." Emma grabbed another box. "Chloe's meeting us at the lawyer's office in an hour." The drive downtown felt like crossing enemy territory. Every red light brought another text, another attempt to access my accounts. Helen's web tightening with each passing minute. In the lawyer's parking lot, Ryan waited, looking lost without Helen orchestrating his movements. "Maya, please." He stepped forward. "Whatever you're planning." "How's the trust fund, Ryan?" His face paled. "The one you get if you stay under Mommy's control?" "It's not like that." "Then what's it like?" "Explain it to me. Explain why you let her track my medical records, my bank accounts, my entire life." "She's protecting us." "Like she protected Caroline?" The name hit him like a slap. "What are you talking about?" "Ask your father." I moved past him, Emma flanking me. Better yet, ask Helen about her first victim. Maya! His voice cracked. Don't do this. We can fix things. I turned back, seeing the boy Helen had shaped, the man he'd never become. No, Ryan. You can't fix this because you can't even see what's broken. Inside, Chloe waited with the lawyer, documents spread across the conference table. My phone buzzed again. Helen had escalated to calling mutual friends, expressing her concerns about my mental state. She's moving fast, the lawyer observed, reviewing Paul's evidence. But so are we. I signed paper after paper, each signature a brick in the wall between me and Helen's influence. Restraining orders, financial protections, medical directives explicitly banning Helen from any involvement. One last thing. The lawyer slid forward a final document. Your resignation letter. My hand hesitated over the paper. The marketing firm had been my sanctuary, my achievement independent of the Carters. Helen's already called them, Chloe said quietly. Expressed concerns about your stability, your ability to handle client accounts. Of course she had. Helen Carter left no stone unturned, no escape route unclosed. I signed, feeling something break and reform inside me. What now? Now? The lawyer gathered the documents. Now we let Helen think she's winning. While we prepare to take everything. My phone lit up with a final message from Helen. The contractors need your input on the nursery colors. Though given your current state, perhaps it's best if I make these decisions. Ryan agrees. I placed my phone face down, thinking of Caroline, of all the women Helen had crushed beneath her perfect facade. No more decisions, Helen, I whispered. No more control. The war was starting, and this time, Helen Carter wouldn't see the strike coming until it was too late. The moving trucks arrived at dawn, Helen's army of workers swarming our half-renovated house like ants. I watched from Emma's car as they carried in furniture I'd never seen, arranging Helen's life over the ashes of mine. You don't have to be here, Emma said softly. Yes, I do. Helen emerged from her Mercedes, directing traffic with imperial efficiency. Ryan trailed behind her, carrying a box labeled family photos, photos I knew wouldn't include me. My phone buzzed, a message from my lawyer, documents ready. Waiting for your signal. I stepped out of the car just as Helen was instructing someone about placement of her antique mirror. She spotted me in its reflection, her smile spreading like a crack in glass. Maya, darling. We were so worried. She glided forward, arms outstretched. The doctors said you might try something rash. Doctors? The ones we consulted about your condition. Her voice carried just far enough for the workers to hear. Don't worry, we've handled everything. Ryan wouldn't meet my eyes. Mother's right. You need help. Like Caroline needed help? Helen's smile flickered. Ryan, darling, take those boxes inside. Maya and I need to talk. Once Ryan was gone, Helen's mask slipped. You've been quite troublesome lately. I learned from the best. Did you really think you could win? She produced a folder. Your medical records show a history of anxiety. Your recent behavior suggests paranoid tendencies. The bank has concerns about your financial decisions. All carefully orchestrated by you. I protect what's mine. Her eyes hardened. Ryan is mine. This house is mine. Your sad little attempts at independence are finished. Like you finished Caroline? The name hit harder this time. Helen stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper. Paul should have kept his mouth shut. But it doesn't matter. No one believed Caroline either. Maya? Ryan called from the doorway. Mother, is everything okay? Perfect, darling. Helen's smile returned. Maya was just leaving. For good this time. I looked at Ryan, seeing the boy who'd once promised to love me, now just another piece in Helen's collection. Was any of it real? His eyes flickered with something, regret, maybe fear. But Helen cleared her throat, and he straightened. Mother knows best. Yes, I said quietly. She certainly does. I pulled out my phone, pressed send on a pre-written message. Seconds later, Helen's phone chimed. She checked it, frowning. What is this? Check your email. I watched her face as she read. Every manipulation documented. Every financial move tracked. Every conversation recorded. Including what you just said about Caroline. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't dare. The police have copies. So do the medical board and banking regulators. And Caroline's family. Mother? Ryan moved closer, uncertain. 1 hour, I said. That's how long you have before I release everything to the media. Helen's composure cracked. You stupid girl. I'll destroy you. Like you destroyed Caroline? That would be harder now. I nodded toward the street, where Paul sat in his car, watching. Your husband's testimony might complicate things. Paul would never. He already has. I stepped back. 1 hour, Helen. Tick-tock. I turned away, her threats following me like shadows. But halfway to Emma's car, Ryan caught my arm. Maya, please. Whatever you're doing. Check your trust fund, Ryan. I pulled free. See if it's worth the price of your soul. Helen's voice rose behind us, sharp with panic. Ryan. Get back here now. He hesitated, torn between two worlds. For a moment, I saw the man he could have been, the life we might have had. Then he turned away, returning to Helen's side like a trained dog. I got into Emma's car, watching Helen's perfect world begin to crumble. My phone buzzed with threats, promises, finally desperate pleas. You okay? Emma asked. I thought of Caroline, of all the women Helen had broken, of the life I'd almost lost to her web of control. No, I answered honestly. But I will be. The hour began to count down, and with it, Helen Carter's reign of manipulation. Sometimes, I realized, the greatest revenge isn't in destroying your enemy, but in forcing them to face their own reflection. 58 minutes into Helen's hour of reckoning, the Carter family lawyer arrived, clutching his briefcase like a shield. Behind him, Helen swept into the conference room, her perfect posture betraying only the slightest tremor. Ryan followed, pale but resolute, while Paul slipped in last, taking a seat beside my sisters. Let's discuss terms, Helen announced, as if she were still orchestrating a dinner party. I placed Caroline's photograph on the table. Helen's mask slipped for just a moment. I'm not here to negotiate. My voice remained steady. I'm here to end this. Everything can be negotiated. Helen's smile tightened. Name your price. Mother, Ryan started, but she silenced him with a look. The trust fund? Helen continued. The house? Both can be yours. Just delete those files. I slid forward a stack of documents. These aren't terms, Helen. These are consequences. The lawyer reviewed the papers, his expression darkening. Mrs. Carter, perhaps we should. Be quiet. Helen's composure cracked. Maya, darling, think carefully. You're destroying a family. No. I met her gaze. I'm freeing one. Ryan grabbed the documents, scanning them with growing horror. These accounts. Mother, what did you do? Protected you, Helen snapped. Everything I've done has been for you. Like Caroline? The words hung in the air. Tell him, Helen. Tell Ryan about your first victim. She was unstable, Helen hissed. Like you. Show him the trust fund conditions. I nodded to the lawyer. Show him how his own mother bought his obedience. Ryan's hands shook as he read the terms. His inheritance, his future, all contingent on remaining under Helen's control. You didn't protect him, I said softly. You imprisoned him. Ryan. Helen's voice hardened. Remember everything I've sacrificed for you. But Ryan was still reading, his world unraveling with each page. The fertility treatments. You told the doctors to. You weren't ready for children. Helen reached for him. I knew what was best. Like you knew what was best for Caroline? Paul's quiet voice cut through the room. Tell him the truth, Helen. Tell our son how his father's first wife really died. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Helen's perfect facade crumbled, revealing something desperate underneath. She was going to take Paul away. The words burst out like poison. She didn't understand family loyalty. Just like you, Maya. Always fighting, always questioning. So you destroyed her. I pushed forward the final document, Caroline's medical records. Gradually, systematically, until she had nothing left. I protected what was mine. Helen's fist struck the table. And I'll do it again. Ryan, tell them. Tell them I'm right. But Ryan was staring at his father, understanding dawning in his eyes. Dad? Paul met his son's gaze. I watched her do it once. I won't watch it happen again. The police have everything, I said quietly. The financial records, the medical manipulation, Caroline's case. It's over, Helen. Nothing's over. Helen straightened, reaching for her last weapon. Ryan, choose. Now. Ryan looked at his mother, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. Then he placed the trust fund documents on the table and stepped back. I choose freedom, he whispered. Helen's world collapsed in slow motion. She reached for the papers, for control, for anything to hold on to. But there was nothing left. You'll regret this, she threatened, but her voice had lost its power. I stood, gathering the evidence of her destruction. No, Helen. You'll regret not understanding that love isn't control. Family isn't ownership. And karma. I smiled, thinking of Caroline, of all the lives Helen had tried to break. Karma is watching. As security escorted Helen out, her threats fading down the hallway, Ryan caught my arm. Maya, don't. I pulled away gently. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. He nodded, understanding at last. Outside, Emma and Chloe waited with Paul. Behind us, Helen's perfect world continued to crumble, years of manipulation exposed to light. Was it worth it? Emma asked softly. I watched Ryan walk away, finally free from his mother's web, and thought of Caroline. Ask me tomorrow, I said. When Helen Carter wakes up to face the truth she's spent a lifetime hiding. The auction sign swayed in the autumn breeze, its red letters stark against the half-renovated facade of what was once my dream home. I watched from across the street as potential buyers filed in. Their whispers carrying fragments of the scandal that had brought the mighty Helen Carter to her knees. Emma touched my shoulder. Ready? I nodded, gripping Caroline's photograph in my pocket. The foyer still smelled of Helen's signature perfume, though she hadn't set foot here since the investigation began. Her carefully chosen wallpaper hung in strips, renovation dreams abandoned mid-transformation. Maya. Ryan's voice echoed from the kitchen. He looked smaller somehow, without Helen's shadow looming over him. I didn't expect you today. I came to return something. I placed a small key on the marble counter, the one Helen had given me on my wedding day. And to deliver this, I handed him Caroline's photograph. He studied it, his fingers tracing the edge of the frame. "She looks happy here," he said quietly. "She was. Before your mother decided she was a threat." I moved toward the window, watching another group of buyers arrive. "The house goes to auction tomorrow. Mother's under house arrest. The investigation." He swallowed hard. "They found others. Before Caroline." Of course they had. Helen Carter's web of destruction stretched back decades, each thread carefully woven and now finally unraveled. "The trust fund's gone," Ryan continued. "Everything she controlled, everything she built. Everything she stole," I corrected gently. He nodded, defeat etched in his features. "I keep asking myself when I lost my way. When I became what she wanted instead of who I was. The question isn't when you lost your way." I turned to face him. "It's whether you'll find it again." Through the window, I spotted Paul helping the auction team set up their signs. He caught my eye, nodding once, a gesture of gratitude, of understanding. He'd found his voice too late for Caroline, but just in time to help bring Helen's reign to an end. "I filed the final divorce papers," I said. "They'll arrive tomorrow." Ryan's hand tightened around Caroline's photograph. "Maya, I don't." I stepped back. Some apologies are better left unsaid. A commotion outside drew our attention. Helen's face splashed across someone's phone screen, news of her arrest making headlines again. The mighty Helen Carter, finally facing justice for decades of manipulation and fraud. Was it worth it? Ryan asked suddenly. The revenge? I thought of Caroline, of all the lives Helen had tried to break, of the freedom that came with finally standing up to her. It wasn't revenge, Ryan. I moved toward the door. It was justice. For Caroline, for your father, for everyone she tried to control. Even for you. Emma waited by the car, but I paused on the porch, taking in the house one last time. The renovations would never be completed, the dreams Helen tried to build on others' broken spirits crumbling like the stripped wallpaper inside. "What will you do now?" Ryan called after me. I smiled, thinking of the small apartment I'd bought, the marketing firm I was starting, the life I was building, this time on my own terms. "I'm going to live," I answered simply. "Something your mother never learned how to do." As we drove away, I watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror. Helen's perfect world had shattered, but from its ruins, others would rise, Ryan, finding his own path, Paul, finally free from decades of guilt. Caroline's family, at last knowing the truth. "You okay?" Emma asked softly. I touched the empty spot where my wedding ring used to be, feeling lighter than I had in years. "You know what, Em? I really am." The auction sign grew smaller behind us, its red letters fading into the distance. Sometimes, I realized, the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemy's world, but in building your own, brick by brick, choice by choice. Free from the shadows of those who would cage you in their own fears. Helen Carter had spent a lifetime collecting broken spirits. In the end, it was her own spirit that shattered, leaving others to finally spread their wings and fly.